Hello, everyone. Let's get set up here. I'm getting the tripod set up so we can talk about this beautiful moon today. Lots happening, lots of feels going on out there in the world. A lot of being on pause still happening out there in the world. And yeah, we've still got a full moon happening. Drawing us in, pulling us in. Hello, everybody. So I wanted to come in and do this video live today to talk about, and I want to hear and get some feedback from you guys as well as to what you are experiencing. So we've got the board set up, and of course the big board is in the back, but I like to use this board so that I can draw on it and show you the aspects that I'm talking about, show you what we're looking at. So I'm going to teach a little astrology while we also talk about, what's going on, what we're actually experiencing. So let's jump in, let's get in here, okay? So today is the full moon in Libra, and it is at 18 degrees, okay? So first and foremost, when we're looking at the actual technical aspect of what's happening when we have a full moon, just in case you're new, or even if you've been studying for a while and you didn't really actually know what was happening with the actual technicality of it, what happens is that we see the sun and the moon in opposition to one another. So it means they're pulling in two different directions. That's what creates a full moon for us, okay? So it means that our polarities are lit up, right? Like my needs versus my wants. We've got the sun and the moon, so my internals, my externals versus my internals. These two things are going in two different directions. So that's the actual aspect of a full moon energy, okay? Then we want to include in the signs that they are happening in. So we've got the sun over here at 18 degrees of Aries, and the sun is about light, heat, life, and vitality. I want to be seen here. I want to shine. I want people to know me like this, right? In the energy of Aries, this is an energy of the identity, what I've been known for, what I regard my identity as, right? How I'm seen. All of those things get wrapped up into this sun in Aries kind of energy. Now, if you've been following the astrology just in general, or you know any Aries people, you will know that for many Aries energies right now, they are feeling very scattered in terms of feeling a lack of inspiration. What do I do? Where do I go next? Who and what am I going to be known for? So we've also kind of got that vibration of this energy happening over here in the sun. But Aries is also a cardinal energy. The sun is exalted in the energy of Aries, which means he doesn't really live in Aries, but he's very happy when he visits. So this is a very productive kind of energy. And productive just means willing to do something, willing to make some movement. But that's very hard when we're feeling a little bit shocked into, well, what should I be doing? Who am I? All of those kinds of questions. Now we take that in a very external way because the sun is lighting up a lot of externals, right? And that is in opposition over here to this moon, which is governing and lighting up our internal lives. This is our emotions, right? These are what makes me feel secure, my reactions to life. The moon also lights up my connections to other women or to things of the past, right? But it's ultimately, when we're looking at the moon, it's a place of security and a place of the emotional balance. Now that's in the energies over here of Libra, and Libra is the energy of the we. It's partnerships, right? And it's relationships, but it's also relation. And it's also the balance that lies in between those things. So in a very internal way, I'm looking, I'm feeling, I'm calling for some balance, for some justice, for some equilibrium, equality. And I want this in my relationships. But I want you to think very broad with me today, right? And over the next 4 weeks, because over the next 4 weeks is when you're going to see this balance and what you need to do to take care of that balance play out. That it's not just relationships, it's what you are in relation to as well, right? And that's going to be something I'll light up as I keep talking. But being in these oppositions, my internals and my externals, who I think I am, who I've known myself as, the me, I, what I'm doing, how I'm being seen, what I'm bringing to the table, is pulling against the we. How do I feel inside? Do I feel connected? Do I feel disconnected? Now, in a global way, we know that many people are in the quarantine time or in stay at home and something like that going on in your world, right? That's definitely, we're going to see that in these polarities, right? Like the me who's over here doing my little part by staying at home versus my true security and connection to my relationships, feeling the depth and the warmth and the heartbeat of being in the same room with another human being, and or I'm in the room with a whole bunch of other human beings and my reactions are like, hold on, get me out of here, there's too many people in my space, right? So it could be either one of those, but ultimately what we're looking at in just this particular aspect of this sun and moon balance, this Libra Aries balance, is the me versus the we. And on the insides, what we remember here at this moon is that we cannot balance other people. You have got to maintain a space and an active set of daily routines to govern and to balance your own insides, your own internal natures and realities, right? I'm going to go into a global perspective after I talk about it a little bit more pared down for the individual. So stay tuned for that if you like to hear that particular information. So now what we also see is that we've got some travelers happening over here, right? We've got Juno also traveling retrograde in the energy of Libra, just not too far from this delicious moon. So we know that there is some impact of this moon on Juno as well. Now, Juno is our asteroid that is about real, true commitment, right? We make a very deep, true commitment with our Juno energies, where it's like Venus brings in love, Juno helps us to commit to it. Where Venus brings in money, we commit to how we're going to make that money and interact with it. It is in Libra. So we are looking back at the value of relationships, the value of how we've participated in relation to things in our lives, relationships, money. And it's retrograde. So we're going back. We're not necessarily looking over brand new things. We're looking at, some of the balance of what are the commitments that I've made in the past? What are some of the relationship and financial commitments I've made in the past? And do they serve my greatest good at this time? Because the full moon says that something needs to be ended, acknowledged, or we need to make an adjustment to it. So we are adjusting in past relationships here and in our relation to the things that we've got going on in our lives. Okay, so very much so looking for a rebalancing happening on that me and we axes. And the other thing I continue to think of when I'm thinking about this me and we axes is this place of maybe where you feel like just in and of yourself, you feel like you are lacking something, right? Maybe, so you want to look at where your Libra energies are at in your chart, find 18 degrees of Libra in your chart. If you don't have a chart, go to astro.com, Cafe Astrology, pull up a free one. You can always come buy one from me, but it's really important to identify where this 18 degrees is in your chart so you know what area of life this is actually working on for you. For me, this is happening in my second house where I have a ton of Libra planets. So it's a very activated day, including going over my Saturn. So I feel very serious about this subject today, right? So make sure that you can identify where you're maybe even feeling like you are lacking a little bit in your own needs and in how you're showing up, okay? So another one of the kind of dilemmas I feel like is on our table is that Libra is so just and wants to be so balanced that it can create an energy of being indecisive, right? I feel like I want to go this way. I feel like I want to go this way. Venus is also in the energy of Gemini right now. We've got, oh my gosh, these are all air energies. I could be going this way. I could be doing this. Mars is in an air energy. Oh, well, what about this? And what about this? And sometimes we just do so much thinking about what it could be. What's the best possible solution? Maybe it's all just. Maybe it's all, right? It's a very broad kind of energy. So, of course, we're using this big air energy right now to take on all of these different ideas and what should I be doing and what should I be thinking, because air energies are of the mind, right? And that's challenging the sun in Aries, who's very direct. He's like, do this. I do this. I'm about this, right? So it can be an energy that's just, it feels a little tense. The way that you resolve an opposition is you find the compromise in the middle. So it's almost as if at this particular moon, you're going to be challenged a little bit to pick a thing here coming up shortly, but the moon will help you see which relationships, which things in your life don't actually hold a great relation of value for you going forward to help you, right? Because there's a lot of great ideas, but you're not meant to be everything to everyone. You're not meant to know everything, right? So it'll kind of help you see which things to put down. So I think at this moon, this helps with that particular little dilemma that is up on the table. Now, the other thing is we want to consider, and don't worry, there are so many aspects here, you guys. I'm going to walk us through all of them. I really want to take a time to teach, though, while you're here as well. So the other thing we consider is that the sun in Aries is ruled by Mars. So we definitely want to know what Mars is doing at this time as well. And Venus is ruled by Libra, is ruled by Venus. So we also want to kind of have a conversation about what these guys are doing just out in the energy. So we talked a little bit about Mars being up there, just separating from Saturn, right? So, but Mars is up there in the energy of Aquarius. So we've got movement, we've got thinking, we've got that air energy going. Social things are very, very, very busy at this time, which we've obviously seen that. But in your life, in that social Aquarian kind of zone, it's telling you, Mars is like, okay, here's where we need to take action. Here's where we need to be in motion, because Mars is not only just the desire of what you want to do, which you could be creating, with all this air energy, the desire for what do you want next? Where do you want to go next? Where it's not even about always just forward looking, which Aquarian energy is, but it's about from where I'm at today. What can I put my head where my hands are at today to enjoy? Aquarius is friendly, fun energy. Where can I enjoy what's going on for me today? And where can I enjoy social things and be a part of that social movement? Where can I be involved in technology? Where can I be involved in science or in an organization? Where do I need to group up because I'm kind of having a hard time and I need a tribe to inspire me, right? Mars will also say with Saturn up there, hey, these people were really great before. This was a great class to be taking before. This was really great before. But against the energy of a full moon, this might not be the right tribe for you anymore. It might be time to advance on or go back to something that made you feel more balanced before. So Mars here is definitely working on the social zone. Now, Venus up there in Gemini, we touched a little bit on that as well. Venus in Gemini has got us thinking, wanting to communicate in lots of different directions, but it is also quite useful for making connections, for networking, for learning things, for talking about things, right? Venus up there in Gemini really wants new information. It wants and needs and will demand at a level of value new thoughts. So this combination of nice air energies that we see very much so have us in the mind at this particular moon. So if you're feeling like you're thinking a lot, then those are definitely the highlighted areas and you are right on target, okay? Now, we've got a couple days ago, we also had the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, okay? These guys came together. It was a very, very big thing. It was a very big deal for us, really globally, but because it was such a big deal globally, it was a big deal for us here as a people, right? As humans in general. So with these two having had their conjunction and really saying something's got to die off, and we have to see the wisdom in the old way or the old structure, Capricorn structure, of dying off, and we have to do something different to expand forward, right? Now, it's an interesting kind of deal here because Jupiter is not necessarily comfortable in the energy of Capricorn. He's actually what we call being in fall, okay? So as he's in fall here, but he's working together with this Pluto energy, Jupiter is tired and he's kind of like, all right, well, I'm not as powerful here as I'd like to be. So I'm going to show you in a very undercurrent way the value, the wisdom behind adjusting our structures that we've had. So in your own life, what is the value of dying off in the way that you used to live. Everybody has pretty much got a new norm. Even if you've been working at home for years and this didn't affect your work from home, the world is shifting and it is changing at this particular time. And so this is it's not ever going to be the same kind of energy, right? And so what's the value in allowing a different structure to come into your life? So where are your Capricorn energies in your chart? Look for 24 and 25 degrees respectively. They'll be together, so grab your chart and check that out. I can tell you my experience of these two is in my 5th house, so that's looked like a couple things for me. One, my children are getting older and we've had to die off to the ways that we used to do things, and now we're having to bring in the wisdom of putting in new structure around things, right? One of my children is, while we're all in quarantine, and now in Colorado, you can, if people are trying to come into Colorado, they can actually be fined at this particular time, and one of my daughters is out of state, so I've not been able to be with her, and so, you know, that has excited my little momness in there, right? But having to see the value and allowing a new structure to be in place, something steady, something sturdy. They're doing online schooling, things like that, right? So what does this look like in your life? What's the value of allowing these to die off as well? Pluto and Jupiter together will push to succeed. Now, at the time of this particular moon, depending on how wide of an orb you use. And an orb, in case you're new or you just don't know what it is, an orb is how close planets get, how close or far they are from each other. Typically with aspects, I use about a 5-degree orb, but many people, especially when you consider like big moon events or eclipses or something like that, they use about 7 degrees. So if we use this at 7 degrees, we're going to see that this particular sun and moon business actually would form square. Right? And what does that look like except for a very big triangle, right? That is a very big triangle, right? Now, if you didn't use the 5-degree orb, you would just talk about the event happening with the Jupiter and Pluto, but we're going to consider it from the perspective of a square here, okay? So with these, the sun and the moon, both making the square up here to this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction and really pulling in Pallas Athena as well, what we know is we want to pay attention to the focal point, the apex up here, the point right here of where that is pointing out to us. So here we are, we're trying to create this rebalancing of our lives, of our identity, of the way that we have known things, our relations to past relationships in our life, our relation to ourselves, even over this last year, right? We started to have a shakeup in January of this year. Really, and now here we are and we are forced into a rebalancing, right? But where this is coming out, where we're struggling and we're having some trouble is the top of this T-square up here, right? It's with this Jupiter and Pluto. I am having a hard time accepting a new reality. And maybe it's not even that I feel like I'm tense and I'm uninspired. I could be very tired, right? I could also this is an energy that may have you feeling like you're just kind of floating, which is okay. It is okay to float right now, right? Just try and float forward if you can. For some people, and this is again in the more global scale, I'm not even going to go global yet. We'll do all global at the end of this, okay? I'll come back to the global because I'm so excited about the global stuff. But where we're going to see this is that Pallas Athena, I think, is a good indicator and helper for us here. She is saying, we need a strategy, my friend. We need a strategy. We need a routine where we stop saying, I want things to go back to normal, or when things go back to normal. That is an answer we don't have today. So Pallas Athena, with this very driven, let's change kind of energy, is saying, let's make a routine. Let's make a strategy for today. What is the life that we're in today? Because that will help us create and find the center ground of this full moon's opposition, right? Remember, when a full moon is happening, it's in opposition, and the way to resolve an opposition is to find the compromise in the middle. So if we can find the compromise in the middle here, we can take out a little bit of the fight up here and actually create that plan for the first time in 13 years of how we're going to go forward with the next phase of our life. And that may look like one day at a time living, but ultimately it still gives you quite a bit of access with Pallas Athena's help there. She's a beautiful beautiful guide of systems and strategy and things like that. So definitely lean into that if you have not been, okay? Now, another aspect that I do want to bring in, hello from South Africa, in this particular moon is that we've got the moon here, right, at this 18 degrees of Libra, but this moon is actually, let's get a different marker so you guys can see that. The moon is actually happening here in this quincunxy deal to Neptune. Now this is important because a quincunx, if you've never worked with the quincunx, what ultimately happens with the quincunx is always trying to maintain equilibrium. It's always trying to get right here. We have to make a lot of adjustments when there is a quincunx. So ultimately what it feels like in the human experience is we're confused. We've got confusion, right? Like I'm not clear on something that's happening here. Now both sides of a quincunx are correct. Both sides of the quincunx are giving us accurate information, but it gets jumbled. It's like telephone, right? So we can't quite see it. So here we are. We're already struggling to kind of break free, find the compromise of our rebalancing of our identities, the me and the we. It's struggling in an old system, which in your life, again, grab your chart. Where are you struggling in your old system? And I tell you, it's a struggle, but it's not a long-term struggle. You can be making traction forward to adjust. Just like my example with my child and I, we adjusted. We adjusted because this is the new way of things, at least for now. So look at where you can also, we've got forward motion this month, okay? But this quincunx coming across the middle here is saying, hold on, we might not have all of the information. This is confusing. We might not have all of the facts at our discretion. Something may actually just be blurred here, right? I maybe am not exactly clear on some of these relationships from my past. So I've got to be gentle. It's a kind of a float date. Also, we're trying to grow in a new system here while we're doing Neptunian things. Neptune in Pisces means not only illness and disease and those kinds of things. It's very much so assigned to that, which is important for us to consider at this time. But it's where we fight something that we can't see, but we know it's there because it manifests in a physical way. So examples I like to give of this are mental illness, right? Like you can look at a person and you have no idea that they've maybe got something mentally going on. Their actions outside of themselves will show us that there's something happening there. So we're trying to reground in circumstances where we're fighting something that we cannot see. And that is unnerving. That is confusing. That makes us nervous, right? Because we just don't have all of the information. As well, remember that we've got Venus traveling down here in this energy of Gemini. So what we're valuing is conversation and information and the lungs. And we don't know exactly how to fully protect that. And we don't really know where we're at with it. So you see how even just in a small global way, it does touch each of our lives, because where is this happening in your life? Where are you fighting something that you can't see? So there's a sense of uncertainty in the growing time around it. That's something very much so to consider, but also that Jupiter, Pluto is willing to let us and take us forward. Okay, so that's a beautiful energy to consider as well. Now, we've got another very big event today, which is a part of the title that was happening, and it actually happened before the full moon moved into place. So depending on when you're watching this, just so you know that they actually moved into place before the moon happened, which is we've got Mars here in this Aquarian energy, and he is in square to this Uranian energy down here in Taurus. Now, a square in aspect is like this. It's like it's squishing you into an uncomfortable box, right? It's, you think about that, take you as a whole human being, and you've got this energy pushing you and making you tight and tense and smaller and pushing on you. So the square I identify and I teach is the 911 of our astrology, because it's going to put you under so much tension that you are going to take an action. You will take an action to break free of that box. You don't want to be under that tension, right? But so what kind of action are we going to take? We have to consider both sides. So first of all, Mars is up here in Aquarius. Now, Mars is about action. This is movement. So again, we know you're in motion, right? There's something happening that you're in motion. You have a desire that will burn hot enough that it will push you into motion. That is taking on this Uranian energy down here in Taurus, which is changing the value system in general. But let's also look at the makeup of what that brings to the table. Mars is in Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So this is a very, very Aquarian, Uranian kind of square to be in. So in that, we know that there is a sense of technology. There is a sense of socialing. We've got social distancing going on, right? We've got this sense of the people, the human, right? Aquarius is considered the human sign, and we learned about that when we were talking to Gary Caton. So the human is taking on Taurus things, our old values, the way that we value things, our old structures, our old belief systems. Now, keep in mind as well that Uranus is in fall in Taurus. They don't necessarily love running together, right? So we're literally, Uranus is shaking every single one of us in the place that we've been fixed, we've been rooted. And Mars is like, get a new idea, get a new plan, innovate. And it's intuitive innovation. It's the kind of innovation with this square that is coming because an event has pushed us to focus into where we've got to let Uranus wiggle us out of this fixed, heavy Taurus energy in order for Taurus to take that deep breath. So look at the Taurus areas of your life. Where have you been feeling stuck? So this will be helping unshake you so that you can ultimately respond. Up here, let's get this new way of living, right? Let's be rebalanced and find that middle ground. The other thing I want to point out about that particular dynamic is that while we talk about it here in the videos and as an astrologer and as another human being, I encourage a positive use of this. But this is a reckless, break-free kind of energy. It happens once a year, and I really believe that Mars and Uranus get excited about their little square coming up because they mean they're going to do stuff. This is a warring energy, and it is like giving birth, or it is like making bread. Like there's some work. You're gonna have to move, and maybe you're angry and you're frustrated and you feel like your world and your routine have been disrupted, and maybe you're angry and you're afraid and you're confused because you don't know what's going on. Maybe you're angry and afraid, or you're just feeling like you're vibrating and you don't know which direction to go, right? This is a square that will put you into action over this next 4 weeks. Absolutely, because even if you don't know where you're trying to go, even if you do know where you're going, you're going to look for balance. You're going to seek balance in a new system of doing things, okay? So I hope that this makes some sense and you can see how the actual astrology is done, how it's considered when I sit down to do a monthly report or I do a moon report. These are the aspects that I consider in relation to one another. So something kind of neat to consider there. Now, the other thing that I want to bring is the global perspective. So let's talk about that, because when we pare down the global perspective of things happening, I think it also makes a lot of sense for the individual as well. Okay, in a global sense, we've definitely got a rebalancing, right? What in the heck is going on out here? We're rebalancing. We've had to change the style and how we do relationships. If I want to give you a hug, it's a cyber hug, or it's at least from 6 feet away, right? It's changed the balance of the people in my house and in my space. And for all of us, this is a change. Maybe our relationships are highly under review in a global way, even in our allies and our connections that we've had, right? But we have to find middle ground here between what are we doing in public to take action, and how is that also affecting other human beings, right? So this is a big, we're trying to find this balance. This is the government saying, please stay inside. Please stay in your house. Please use a mask. Please do this, right? This is this over here. And my we is like, yeah, I mean, I guess I should do that, but it really is stepping on my me. And I don't necessarily love that, right? So we could see a little bit of rebellion coming with this, especially with a Mars-Uranus square. This is a warring energy crossing over this moon. So some people are not interested in doing it this way. Some people are interested more in the fight, in the conspiracy, in the, pick a thing where there's a lot of push that will come behind that energy. But as we have this balancing, and now we look here in this global sense, this will not only bring in this next handful of years, but definitely in this next handful of weeks, this is going to be a dying off, the wisdom of dying off of things that have held structure for us. This includes our government officials. This will include the way that we have done government things, global things. This is going to be a dying off of structures that have been in our global lives for sure. Now, where do we see this move in? What's the next thing? We got to look at this Mars and Saturn business right here. When Saturn moves into a new sign, and it doesn't matter when, right? When Saturn moves into a new sign, there's like a mass exodus of people, places, and things, because all of the things that Saturn comes in there, and it's like he comes in and he looks around and he says, oh, okay, in this Aquarian vibration, we've got this whole handful of things that don't fit the vibe of where we're going. So we've got to get rid of those things, right? So that is what has definitely happened. But Saturn and Mars as well will bring action to the table with that. So this is when we can see Saturn being a little bit more quick. It's a little bit more intense. And unfortunately, it's not my favorite thing to identify, but we can all see it throughout history. When Saturn is doing big mass exodus work, one of the easiest ways to be able to do that is by mass death or mass elimination of something, right? While the vibe is getting reset. But also here, Jupiter and Pluto speak to that at this time, the things that just cannot follow the coming into Aquarius vibration, people, places, and things that will be time for them to transition out. And to be clear, before I get any shade, this is not a celebrating of anybody's passing, although someone's passing is certainly a transition. It is just what we see in the nature of how these things move, and it literally works at even a societal level for us. These are all outer planets except for Mars here. So in our societies around the world, we're going to see this level of mass exodus. And then Saturn's going to work to get serious in these social areas of things that we do together as communities and people, and what is serious and what's right for the individual, which who decides that, right? That's a whole nother video. Things like with technology, right? We've been able to see as soon as Saturn made that move, everybody gets pushed back indoors. And then we have companies like Zoom, right? Zoom is my favorite example, and I am so proud of them right now, because Zoom built a platform that was serious and social and meant to host about 10 million people, right? But Saturn comes into Aquarius, and now we're going to get serious, and we're going to come to the next level, and we're going to put structure, and we're going to have to innovate. And so within days, they move up to 200 million people accessing their software all day long. So what they thought was great software, right, which it was at the time, Zoom was working lovely before this influx of people, this new, like, bringing in this deluge of people, right? And they went, oh my God, we've got to fix all of these security features. Oh my God, we've got to fix all of this. They were immediately shown what cannot continue to exist when Saturn comes to the table, because Big Daddy Saturn is like, I need you to grow up. I need you to make this right, get serious in this area. So we've seen this at a global level, so it is working, right? These energies are working at a global level, and it is all to move us towards this new reality that we're kind of going towards. See, we talk about moving towards the age of Aquarius, which is very exciting, but the things we have to remember, you guys, is that in a global level, an age change is a big deal. And so the universe usually does a really nice job of preparing us well before we get there, okay? Now, we also see this Mars-Uranus square, obviously, happening here. So Mars and Uranus, this is action. We've got a lot of activity happening in the socials, lots and lots, and it is taking on the things that we'd like to be steady and sturdy down here in this Taurus energy. But what it is also doing, and this is where I tell you, and I talked a little bit about it at the Jupiter-Pluto square, is that this is where I want to tell you, as the individual, the human, you're going to take on old structures and old beliefs, because we are still in the energy of Capricorn. At a global level, we're trying to die off, and we're trying to adjust. We're trying to figure out, does cryptocurrency work for us? But what we know for sure, and from history, is that this is going to affect housing, food, and banks. And this is a warring energy. I would encourage every single one of you to make sure that you have access to your cash. All we will really need under this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is one bank to close. And very quickly, many of the other of them will start to follow suit. This will change banking policies for the people. Now, I think, let's see, as of today, which is April 7th, I do believe that that restrictions against even how much money you can take out of the bank are starting to be imposed. So you do want to make sure under this warring energy, this is break free, this is save yourself, this is not be afraid, this is take positive action based on the fact that we are at a time in our lives where we have more access to the history and information of decisions that were made around the world as to how we make these transitions, right? So pay attention to these kinds of things. Housing, this will definitely affect a lot of housing and definitely food. So in this change, as we're getting ready to move more and live in this Aquarian energy, this is where you hear astrologers talking about people also going back to ways of growing foods and things like that. And we've touched on that, but it's any kind of ancient skill that makes it so that you can provide for yourself, right? You're not waiting for an institution to do that particularly for you. So look at your chart and see and question, where are you having this fight that in a global scheme is going to make it so that you can definitely produce and take care of yourself. Because what are you going to do when the banks begin to close and you can't get your money? That changes all of us. That is a great leveler of people for absolutely sure. Now, the quincunx that we see happening with this Neptune, this is what I know. This is what I know from contact from many different people that I get to work with and be in contact with in the world, but also what I know from the astrology is that as we look at it today, we know that about this disease in particular, there is a lack of clarity of information. Something has been hidden from the we, and this will likely in the next 4 weeks begin to present itself. I can tell you with some certainty that our government, at least in the United States, which what are the odds that only the United States knew it, right? Had access to information about this disease and the pathway of it well before we experienced the outbreak of media talking about it here, way before we saw an actual case of it in this country. And this information is going to, in this next 4 weeks, become available, that people had access to this information, and not just that actions weren't taken by the president, right? Think what you want there. This is not a political post. This is about the astrology, right? But that even in the sharing of information, how long the information was available before, what's the actual course of treatment. And I do believe with Mars and Aquarius here, we will begin to, just in terms of the disease itself, because we're focusing on Neptune at this particular point, and Neptune is in conjunction here with Mercury, right? Like it's a loose conjunction, but they're close enough, which means literally we have not had all of the information in order to rebalance ourselves, to feel secure in the we, to feel secure in the relationships where we've trusted our officials, right? So these are going to be things in the astrology, not in the politics. Please don't put anything about political views down below unless it's about the astrology, because we just can't have that debate. We're really kind of all in it together. So let's just look at what the astrology is speaking to us. So expect to see some of those things come out. Expect to see information come out as well about the banking system and the financial markets and how that is changing. And I really, as I've looked through this, I've looked through a couple other moon cycles, and I'm studying a little bit with Lynn Bell about world cycles and things like that. I would be surprised if we see any real let up. Yes, things are supposed to be getting back online about April 30th or so in that time frame, but as far as money and changes to the economy and things like that will have happened, I don't think that we have the real breath of relief that we're looking for in this global way until a little bit closer to July, truly. So, if you're wondering about like what's the timing and how do these things work and all of that, these are definitely things to consider. Other things I want to share with you just quickly is I think I lost my train of thought with Zoom, but I was saying that I was very proud of them because they have taken action with that Saturn energy to get serious about their product. They've literally halted all of their other developments just to focus on security and how do they make that useful. And of course, what happens when we're trying to grow is usually it is a little bit of a poop show in the beginning, right? It just looks a real mess, right? And then as we continue to travel on, it'll be kind of a neat time for Zoom and other companies, all of the things in tech, because Saturn is going to retrograde in July and get back going back into this Capricorn energy. So they'll have a chance to kind of take a deep breath and really restructure so that as it comes forward for the next 2.5 years, they'll have a much better product, and they will probably also become an industry leader in the solutions of how you handle these tech things and social things. Of course, we know at a government level, we are going to really be relooking over healthcare all over the world, right? And what does that look like? Okay. So the other thought that I was having is we keep talking about, first of all, I want to tell you, give yourself some grace at this time. If you're not feeling like highly motivated every 5 minutes, that's fine. Find things that make you laugh. Find things that give you inspiration. That's a great way to figure out where you're out of balance. And it's also just a great way to lift yourself, to lift your mood, to you know what Aries really does. It's an energy. They do like to laugh. They like to be entertained. So lean into that sun energy, lean into some joy at the same time. But also remember that we're in the timing right now where we're just now starting to see some Gemini Sag energy start to be activated with Venus's move. But we're also still in this Cancer Capricorn axis. So you don't necessarily need to do or create anything brand new. You need to go back to something that has been. Really think back 7 years ago. What did you want to start? You tried to start it and it just didn't stick, or you thought a lot about it and you just never did it. Even something that you've been working on, you've likely got it or had it at your fingertips for some time. Now you just need to take that thing and do it in a different way. So what does that look like in my life over here? So one of the things that it looks like is new learning, right? My 5th house is lit up with this energy of the structures that have been there. Where do I need to allow something new to come in? Where do I need to allow the learning to happen? Venus is right over my Mercury. God bless us all that I'm speaking at a normal pitch. So one of the things it looks like is I'm going back to something that has been in my toolkit for a very long time. I did not even remember how much I knew about it, and I'm finishing my Master Herbalist certification so that I can invite that into my practice as well. I am a Taurus. I love to eat. I love food. I love herbs. I love the way they love on the body. I love the way that herbs make us heal, can help us and act as medicine. And I love that herbs are actually a very sexy way to interact with your own body. And I forgot that. You guys, I forgot that. I use it so commonly in my daily life, and I forgot that. And now I'll get to finish my hours and actually become registered to do that. The other way that this is starting to open in my life with just coming into that Venus axis is bringing back language. And I think I talked to you guys about this in some videos before, is going back to moving back to being the polyglot that I wanted to be, right? Speaking multiple languages. So getting back into that, one of which is being a teacher of sign, right? So all of these things are things that have already been in the pocket. So you've already seen these things. They're there for you. Go back to them. Enliven them. Look back over them with new eyes. See how you can do that. Go back to that, because ultimately what you're doing at this time, whether we acknowledge it fully or not, is I'm not going to learn about herbs for me. That's great. I'm going to learn about herbs because what I understand is in this next movement, in this next couple years, herbs will be what I bring to the people. So what you're doing is going to be to uplift the whole of the people. And if that seems very big, or it seems very woo-woo because it's very sexy to say, oh, let's do this for the people, just stop and feel the information of what you're doing, what you're interested in. Because the other part of the rebalancing is maybe you've been thinking, I need to find work that I feel fulfilled in and that I. And it's the we. It's the we. Find the thing that you know how to put your fingers on. Knitting, herbs, gardening, accounting. What do you know how to put your fingers on that is good for the we? And it will literally light you up. A life driven by that level of servant leadership and purpose is brilliant, especially in a time where we've got our outside structures adjusting and kind of crumbling in their own way around us because we need the reset. So lots happening at this moon. And I felt a little bit better about not necessarily posting this super early, but trusting the guidance to come in live with you guys today. So I would be interested in hearing your experience of seeing it live as opposed to seeing it just in the video. And maybe there can be a balance of the two of these, of doing and teaching the astrology live, but also doing it a little bit earlier. So trying and innovating the old things that are in front of me over here as well. So if you'd let me know what your experience of this was and what you think, I would love to hear that down below. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful moon. Get ready for March 9th, because that's when Venus, who's down here in Gemini, is going to go into pre-shadow time before the retrograde. So things that are in your Gemini space, even if you're not sure what to review quite yet, you'll start to get a hint of it from the 9th until May 13th, and when Venus will actually go into retrograde from May 13th to June 25th. So, and I just saw a little thing pop up about the cost of things, the value that we're working with today, the value of money, the value of things around us does not, yes, March 9th, does not necessarily have to do with money anymore. Literally, there's going to be a big change in that. The value of what you have to bring to the table is going to be Aquarian. It's going to be in friendship, in kindness, in information, and in sharing that information with the people. So if you're worried, you're like, I don't have the best equipment, I don't have a job, I don't feel like I have anything to say. Many of you are out there with that Gemini Sagittarian node situation, and it's going to start to be pushed on. So if you are not speaking out, you'll feel the push to speak, and you've likely been feeling it for quite some time. So just remember that value, oh yes, April 9th, I'm sorry. The value is not just financial anymore. The value is in how you can Taurus things, how you can bring beauty, what can you do to nourish the world and create some stability. So, and yes, I'm sorry, I just jacked us all up. It's pre-retrograde shadow time from April 9th until May 13th. We'll retrograde Venus from May 13th until June 25th. And then Venus will do the last part of her retrograding, like the shadow time, until July. That's why I say, you know, July I feel like is the time frame to really kind of have that better leap forward. So I love you all very, very much. I look forward to seeing how this has played out for you in 4 weeks. Let's check in. What has happened? What has this moon showed you? Yes, oh my gosh, I always felt weird about it, but I'm even being pushed to speak to this as well. If you guys would like the video, it really helps my channel. It does. And what I'm also imbibing in is more opportunities to not need to sell you absolutely anything, to just be able to show up with you. And so in order to do that, though, the channel does need to be seen so that I can bring in other opportunities to replace that. So that even felt gross for me to say. It's because I'm getting used to it. So if you guys are having those moments out there where you are getting used to saying or asking for what you need or asking for what allows you to advance, just know I'm doing the same thing over here a little bit too. So I love you guys. Like this video a lot. Tell all your friends to like it. Comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you in our next videos. Goodbye, everyone.